Ladies and gentlemen, there's no better way to get up in the morning than to get up with Garret. Garret is a third-generation success credentialed real estate entrepreneur who's here to give you tips, tricks, and share stories of success. Without any further ado, ladies and gentlemen, Garret Bedroom.
Dougie Bricks.
Good morning.
Dougie Cinco. Dougie
Cinco de Mayo, yeah.
Yeah. Say Feliz Cumpleaños,
See?
but it's not your birthday. It is my little nephew's birthday, Jake, in Delaware.
Yeah.
So happy birthday, Jake. Maybe we can go for a spin in a fast car together one day. That'd be fun. Good way to spend the day. You know, all these different days, like yesterday was Star Wars Day, right?
Yeah.
May the 4th be with you.
Absolutely.
I mean, who's making
and
up
you
this
as
stuff?
well.
And then today, but today's a real one. I mean, Cinco de Mayo is a real day, and I think we'll go out, have a little margarita tonight, and would have been better if it was on a Friday, Dougie.
Yeah.
Not so
Right.
worried about waking up the next day, but it is good to be back. The sun is shining. We are feeling grateful. We are feeling thankful, and we're really lucky because we have a dear friend of the show and one of special family friend that I hold close to my heart, who's going to be joining us today. Josh Kramer is with us. He is the author of our new favorite book, The Unicorn in You. Here it is, right here.
Mm-hmm.
Which is available on Amazon. I read it in one night or so on my Kindle. You can knock through that. It's a great read on the plane also if you're traveling for spring break or whatever you're up to these days. And we're going to spend a little time with Josh talking about family. We're going to talk about entrepreneurship, charity, networking, certainly the apartment business. And of course, we're going to talk a little bit about the 5 pillars of this amazing book, which I think is just an incredible back to basics kind of reset for a lot of people coming out of the pandemic. But let's start you off with feeling fresh, Dougie. I got back from a vacation, haven't had one in a long time.
Yeah.
And just want to maybe show a couple of shots there of the kids, the family enjoying the beautiful weather in South Florida. We went down to Palm Beach. And if you're not familiar with some of the wonderful vacation spots there, you know, whether it's Boca, Delray, Palm Beach, Boynton Beach, Fort Lauderdale. I mean, there's just so many great places. I know Josh has spent a lot of time in Miami as well. You kind of hear about all these winter snowbirders, you know, spending half the year down there, and to be able to go down and spend a couple nights and kind of put your feet up for the first time in a long time. It was kind of like a family honeymoon, my wife described it as. So
Nice.
She came back very happy and very thankful as the kids did, and really appreciate it. It was Easter, it was Passover, and I mean, look at the view. It just looks like you're on a cruise ship. No humidity. I know later we'll talk about maybe having a lot of humility, but this was no humidity. And just can't say enough about the breakers and just the staff and the warm welcomes that our family received down there. And ran into some old friends, actually. Ran into a friend from growing up, Kenny Tilton. I don't have that picture for you, but and ran into some other real estate friends throughout the years at this beautiful resort.
Nice.
Then it was back home for a day or two, try to catch my breath, and off to Texas with my cowboy hat and my cowboy boots. It was time for the Salons by JC annual conference, so we got to see San Antonio again and spend some time. And this was really probably the best conference I've been to for Salons by JC. That's a picture. Congratulations to our good friend Jim McGinnis, who was also a franchisee in New Jersey. He's working a little bit more South Jersey, Red Bank, Shrewsbury area. Mm-hmm. And he was voted the franchisee of the year, which is the most prestigious award in the Salons by JC family.
Wow. Right.
So we've been, I guess we've been giving that award out since 2017. Michael Bedrin and myself were the first to win that award in 2017. Nice. And they have a great private dinner each year for the award winners. And so I was able to spend some time with Jim and catch up with him and, of course, the other franchisees of the year. And so super proud of him. And if you're down in Shrewsbury or Red Bank, stop by and say hi to him and his concierge. And I know he's working on some other locations down there. Funny enough, we had a little plane delay. So we ended up driving from San Antonio to Austin.
Wow.
And then flew from Austin to Houston. And then flew from Houston to, I don't know, Newark, I guess. So what should be a 3-hour, 10-minute ordeal took about 12 hours. But we got home. We made it. And I'm proud that I saw a lot of cities in Texas. Pretty big, by the way. And Austin was interesting. I hadn't had a chance to really see Austin, and I would love to go back and experience it. Just totally young, hip. Reminded me a little bit of Berkeley, California. Some of the different sayings in the airport is just really different than other parts of Texas. So I'm interested in hearing more about that. And I'm excited. Coming back from the conference, we talked a lot about reminding everyone that Salons by JC is the premier brand in the salon suite industry. And we're not going to ever apologize for being the most luxurious, for being the most premier brand. Our differentiator is our concierge, our manager, the level of service that we can provide to our salon owners and their guests. And we are working on even taking that up to the next level. We have a new concierge manager, Allie, who's doing a fantastic job with our new Ramsey salon. We passed our fire inspection today, so we are looking to be opening that in the next week or two.
Congratulations.
And thank you. And we're not done. We still have more inspections, but the floors got put down. The furniture came in on time. The artwork, a lot of it has arrived. So in the next few weeks, we're going to really be like, I can taste it now, Dougie. We're very close.
Can taste it?
Can taste it.
All right.
It tastes good. It tastes like sweet manna from heaven. So that's exciting. And then always love to update everybody on some of the projects that the Bedrin organization is working on, the Bedrin family. We've talked a lot about Hedges at Hawthorne, which is our mixed-use luxury development here in Hawthorne, New Jersey. It's 118 luxury apartment units with a 16,000 square foot retail building, which is going to be Planet Fitness and 2 small retailers, and the 120,000 square foot self-storage, indoor climate-controlled self-storage.
Wow.
So pretty cutting edge, complicated project to have 3 very different uses at the same time. And I think you're going to see, if you can play the drone video,
Absolutely.
please, really what this thing is looking like now, squeezed in here. We're only a few months away from delivering the self-storage as well. That one really is almost finished. You can see the roof parapets now have that beautiful blue on the residential building. You thought they were solar.
They look like solar panels.
They're not solar. And the blue panels on the roof also match the self-storage. So we've got a lot of brick now that is up on the apartment complex there on the facade. And that's all the steel and the foundation's been poured now for retail. We're hoping to deliver that to Planet Fitness by August. And they're doing these panels on the self-storage. Next week, we have the company Janus, who builds all the self-storage actual, I guess you'd call them lockers or cubes. They come in and roll the whole thing out. It's pretty impressive. So they'll be on site next week doing that. So we're making great timing. We have a tremendous interest list. Over 500 people have put in their name for information for this type of product. And I just want to encourage anyone who's listening, if you're still interested, please put your information in. We will get through the entire list. Not everybody who wants to rent an apartment in January is also wanting to rent the same apartment in October. So we do expect some people to obviously have moved on and found their apartment. But if you're looking for a first-class residence that is going to have amenities that will blow you out of the water, something that you've seen in downtown Ridgewood or in the Gold Coast of New Jersey, or frankly in New York City, I really feel we're gonna blow people away with it. So keep in touch. Check out hedgesathawthorne.com.
The comments are rolling in. I do want to remind you guys, we are live. So if you put a question, comment in the comment section, we can answer it live. And Jeffrey Krensman says it looks great.
Wow. Jeffrey, I'm surprised Jeffrey's up. I know he had a triple overtime Ranger game the other night. He's probably exhausted from staying up till 3 a.m. watching that heartbreaker. That's a good friend of the show. And we are live, and you can post your questions, concerns, your emails. And if the comments are appropriate, we'll try to answer them live.
Absolutely.
And if you miss the show or miss any part of it, you can definitely go to YouTube or my personal LinkedIn or Instagram, Facebook. We're everywhere, Doug.
Everywhere.
It's like Spider-Man. I was watching that new one. He's everywhere. There's 3 of them now. They're everywhere. One other update I thought was interesting. We talked a couple weeks ago about Elon Musk talking about maybe buying Twitter, and it did happen. It happened.
Awesome. Yeah.
I don't think it's closed yet, but they've stopped trading publicly. He is going to take it over, and there's a lot of talk in the markets about is he too busy? Doesn't he have enough on his plate with Tesla, with SpaceX, with other things that are going on? I think he's the world's richest man. I mean, that goes up and down based on, I guess, the market of Tesla. So I was curious, what are your thoughts? Do you feel he's got too much on his plate, or do you feel like he really can add value to this company?
Well, I mean, basically what I've seen and heard is that his mindset is with free speech and how these apps like Twitter, Facebook, Instagram are kind of controlling what people see and think. And he's against that. So it's good to, kind of break that mold and maybe shake things up a little bit.
Absolutely. And he's even talking about maybe bringing it public after he fixes it. You know, it just seems like someone that wealthy, I don't think he really is in it for the money.
Yeah, exactly.
I think he really views Twitter as a town square and really wants to protect free speech.
Yeah.
And I think Twitter's played an important role in the success of his businesses. I think he sees that for other people too. Josh, with you putting together, a book and obviously there's tremendous things going on in your life. I mean, is social media something that you've had to learn a little bit about now in following this?
Massive learning curve for me. And first of all, I feel like I've made it because I'm getting up with Garret. Finally, I've been talking about doing it. And thank you for having me, first off.
My pleasure.
Social media for sure is something that's been a massive learning curve because I'm just old enough to remember when I didn't have email, didn't have internet, didn't have cell phones.
Yep.
So I feel like I have a good blend of that perspective, but also kind of using all these great tools.
Do you remember AOL when it first came out?
Of course,
and that dial-up and that anxiety and anticipation. Right. And it's like, oh my God, you've got mail, right?
Right.
That's why I think we're the best generation of all time, because we were just at the beginning where we knew to go play outside and we didn't have it, and then we got it and we know how to use it. So we're like the best generation.
Absolutely. I mean, look, if Elon Musk were to put out a tweet that said, check out the new book, The Unicorn in You, I think that would probably be life-changing for you, Josh.
No question.
No question. I mean, if probably bigger than Oprah even mentioning it.
Yeah.
I mean, so it's really amazing though. A celebrity could totally change a business, with a tweet, with a comment in social media. And, I'm really interested to see what happens. I think it's going to take some time. I think anytime you buy a new business, you got to digest for a year. You have to kind of understand what in the world did you just buy, right? And there's a lot of different cultures amongst the different groups of people that are existing that were there at launch. And, sometimes someone that founds a business is the founder is not always going to be the one that takes it, to the biggest prominence and the biggest value. So, okay, I want to talk with Josh a little bit because we've been dear family friends. I think our parents even went to high school together.
That's right.
Is that true?
Wow. Hey.
And known Josh a long time. We've looked at different real estate and different, business opportunities together over the years. We've talked a lot about YPO and entrepreneurship and networking. But if you don't mind, Josh, just give the viewers a little bit of a background, kind of a short, how do we get here today? Talk a little bit about the lumber business, the apartment business, and then we're going to jump into the book a little bit.
Sure. Well, again, thank you for having me. I appreciate it. You and your family are very dear to us. And I'm a northern New Jersey native, and my family goes back to New Jersey, probably from Paterson, New Jersey days.
Incredible.
Back in the early 1900s. And our business started in 1922. So actually we're 100 years old this year.
Oh, congratulations.
And thank you. And it's, I'm fourth generation, and I've been very fortunate. And we started as a lumber business. We were supplying lumber millwork and materials to most of the state of New Jersey. And then in the early 1940s, my grandfather and his brother and two brother-in-laws supplied to a lot of home builders. And when the home builders, after the turn of the war, they couldn't really pay their bills, they took interest in the homes.
Really?
It didn't take them long to notice that and recognize that they could build the homes themselves.
Wow.
And that's how they got into the home building business.
Interesting.
So from the 40s, 50s, and 60s, they built a lot of single family homes in probably northern and central New Jersey. They were very, very fortunate, to sort of, have that heritage and legacy. And then probably more in the late 50s, early 60s, got into multifamily products.
Got into multifamily.
And some of those assets are legacy properties that we still have.
You still have them.
Still have partners to this day that are now in their second and third generations. And there's nothing like it because I think you recognize and you appreciate the history.
Incredible.
And so I, work with my father, who's effectively retired. He turned 75 this past year.
Incredible.
But he was a single family home builder. And so I grew up in northern New Jersey. I'm back in the area. I absolutely love it. It's special to me, but I've had stops along the way in Washington, D.C., South Florida, and now back up north. Yeah,
you've had some great ventures, and I know you love to travel.
Yes.
You've been all over the world. We'll talk about that maybe at some point as well. So let's talk a little about the apartment business and the industry in general. I mean, have you seen what they're doing in downtown Ridgewood?
Unbelievable.
The new product that's come about?
Unbelievable.
Are you just blown away by it?
You know, I've been going to Ridgewood for 40 plus years.
You told me about Souk pastry, by the way.
Oh, that's right. I was there last night.
Were you?
So, yeah. And so Souk is amazing.
I didn't know
and
that.
She has a great article in her store about how she came to understand the village of Ridgewood, obviously. And to me, it's a special town. There are a handful in northern New Jersey, certainly Montclair, Summit,
Yep.
Maplewood I was at recently is
Yep.
beautiful. But Ridgewood's special. It has that quality and that charm. And you're active in that town. But the multifamily that's gone on there, I think, has integrated so well with really the character and just sort of the whole feel of the area. I think it was important that they do that. And obviously, with 3 new products on, I see the 4th one being built at. I can date myself. It was at the old Seal Funds building.
Yes,
that was way back when.
that's right next to us. Yeah, we're right
right.
there. I think that one that's called Noma, Noma, North Maple,
Yeah,
Noma, and that's kind of like a sister property to the Benjamin, which was right up. And I think I bought a car. I know I leased a car at that Lincoln dealer. It was like a Ford Lincoln dealer.
Yes.
Yeah, my uncle helped me with that. I don't know, 20 years ago, whatever. And the rents they're getting at these facilities just blew my mind away. I mean, some of these 2 bedrooms are $4,500 to $5,000. And you think about a wealthy family that maybe sold their home and doesn't want to take care of the maintenance of the pool and the grass and the snow. And of course, the taxes are very high in Ridgewood. So when you kind of add up the dollars and you say, oh, I can get something brand new, kind of that easy lifestyle. Maybe there's an elevator in the building, so I'm not worried about walking up the stairs anymore. And it's just, I was blown away when I walked through them. I've seen them all now. Pretty impressive.
It's become a real alternative and an option for people who, you're right, don't want to pay those taxes. I think that in many ways, the train is the equalizer. They can easily get to New York City if they're commuting. And for someone maybe who's retired, who still loves being in town, but doesn't want to maintain a home.
Still love the community of the town.
And now you're on foot most of the time. And, so
that's what we're hoping we can do with Hedges and Hawthorne and other future properties, try to find locations that aren't so dependent on the car. And I think as real estate development changes, I'm hopeful that we're going to see municipalities be willing to really shrink those parking ratios. I mean, you see so many properties, especially in the grocery anchored shopping center world, where it's the old school 5-to-1. That's 5 parking spaces per one. I'm just lost myself. Five per 1,000, exactly. 5 per 1,000. Five spots per 1,000 square feet. So it's just a number that to me is crazy. It's just a huge asphalt parking lot. And if the grocery store were to ever close, which has happened to us numerous times, unfortunately, and we've navigated our way through it. And now you have a change of use. That new tenant, like a Big Lots or a Burlington Coat Factory or TJ Maxx or Ulta, they don't need anywhere near that amount of parking. And now you've got this, great location in your town or your city or whatever it may be, and you've got this tremendous kind of asphalt in front. That's not so inviting anymore. It's not so sexy. I'm finding consumers really want to have something where they can hang out, they can eat, they can be with their friends, they can be social, they can be communal. There's green space, maybe an open park, and they can have movie nights and a little ice cream stand with playing corn. What's that game you guys play in the
Cornhole?
Cornhole.
But
thank you, Dougie.
Can Jam's way better.
Go ahead.
Anyway.
Okay. Whatever those crazy tailgating
can
games you
Jam
guys
with
like.
the frisbee is way better. But
Frisbee.
I digress.
We actually have a shopping center. I don't want to get too into it because we're not there yet, but we have something in the portfolio, and we'll be talking about it probably hopefully in another month or so, where we are seriously now meeting with the city about knocking down a major part of it and doing hundreds of apartments, which I think will be fantastic. And it's one of these tremendous islands of asphalt that it's like, now the area is fantastic. Why do you want that there?
Right.
Yeah.
Well, I love I'm super excited to see what you're going to do with the Hedges. I think it's going to be one of the great projects in this area for a number of reasons, but most notably, I think it's going to become a real no-brainer for people. It's in a great location. It sits really effectively on the cusp of Bergen and Passaic County.
Yep.
And it's going to be high-end, new luxury product with great access to everything. And of course, what I think you're smart putting the retail piece in, the Planet Fitness. I used to live in Englewood, right near. They had the gym there, which you remember from Montville, I think closed, unfortunately.
Special part of my heart, the gym. Really great brand.
And having that for residents is a great amenity. And certainly the other little piece of retail you have there. But I've been watching the Hedges. I'm excited for you, and it's going to be a beautiful project.
I hope you can make the grand opening party. I don't have a date yet, but I hope you're there. And I appreciate that. And I view in real estate development, I'm starting to view the uses as amenities, right? Because obviously a Planet Fitness is an incredible amenity if you live on site. Even storage is a great amenity, right? The biggest thing we hear from apartment owners or renters in New York City certainly is storage. I mean, New York City is all about the premium of space and storage. And we have YPO friends that had a tremendous storage sale recently. That's public news. But so I'm excited how those uses blend together. And you're right, walking to the train and not relying on the car. I mean, I don't think my little one, Harper, is going to ever drive. I really think Elon Musk with Tesla is going to figure out some deal with Uber, and there's going to be these little Uber Teslas driving around. Like I'm seeing Elon and Dara, right, from Uber. They're like figuring out their two little genius brains or big genius brains, and this car is going to just drive around. It's never going to get tired, right? I mean, at some point, it's going to have to park somewhere in Newark and the port and charge overnight. But if my kids don't drive and the Uber just picks them up and takes them to the mall and everywhere they want to go, why do I need these huge parking lots? And that could be a boon to real estate development, right?
No question. I mean, parking ratios, you're right. We have some assets in Parsippany area that are they're older garden apartment communities. They were well built, but they were not built for 2-car homes.
Gotcha.
And it's interesting. We recently a few years ago, we did a repaving. We had to do restriping. And the striping, we were able to pick up a few spots because they were made for these enormous cars, these big, long cars. And now there's a mindset where people today, they want to use the service, right? They want to pay for the ride, but not the car. And so we'll see if there's a shift in what your requirements will be at apartment buildings. If, certainly I think another shift is going to be where you're going to need charging stations.
Of course.
And that's something.
Yeah,
that,
we're putting 2 in now.
Yeah.
I think 2 or 3 at Hedges. And I mean, that has gone in the past year. That's gone from the question of should we to, done.
Correct.
Like that's done. On my next project, don't even ask me, just do it.
Yep.
Send me the bill.
Well, how about Uber? What if I told you 10 years ago you're going to put your daughter in a stranger's car and he's going to drive her somewhere?
I know. I mean, so when we were growing up, our parents said never talk to strangers. Don't get in a car with a stranger. Now we're literally
Shipping
like
them off.
begging a stranger to take your kid.
Sweet 16 gift. Here's unlimited Uber.
But when we were on vacation, Jess and Juliet were, I don't know, they were at an ice cream store or something a few blocks away. And Jess texted me and said, I want to come home. And it was too far to walk at that point. And I went on Uber, right? And I ordered them. I don't know. Is it call an Uber, text an Uber? How do you get an Uber? You just do it?
I know the phrasing.
You tweet. There's no.
Right.
It's get.
You get an Uber. I'm going to get an Uber. All right. I'm going to tweet an Uber. I don't know.
Elon didn't buy Uber.
No. Can you TikTok an Uber, guys? Come on, help me out, kids. So I set up the Uber. I called you. I don't know. And I can send it to pick up Jessica.
Yeah.
And it's great. It sends me like, okay, here's the person's face. Here's their license plate. I send that to Jessica. And then it can text her like the arrival. It shows her. And now I know that Jess is in the car and I can track them. Yeah. So, I mean, that is much better than some random, hi, this is Jeannie from the taxi dispatch. Where do you need to go? I'm thinking of the lady from like Sing,
and give it 10 years, they won't even be drivers.
Right,
like
that's
you're
what I'm saying.
How like
the car's just going to go.
They won't even have to charge. The car will go to a docking bay. They'll switch out the batteries, and the car will go back on the road.
Yeah, I mean it's pretty crazy. Josh, so some of these apartments are older vintage, you're saying. So what type of feedback are you getting from your residents now as you start doing update programs? I mean, are there certain amenities that you feel, obviously, like you can't put a pool in if there's no pool. I mean, there's no room. It is what it is. But are you forced to make certain upgrades, whether it's work from home space or office space or more fitness? I mean, what are some of the things that you're hearing are in high demand that you can maybe think about renovating?
It's interesting because at our communities, and we kind of slot in a really, I would call it a nice middle market. I think that we appeal to a very wide range of incomes, which we pride ourselves on. At the same time, we have limitations with the things we can do because they were built so long ago and we're a little bit landlocked. You mentioned pools. And one of the things that's interesting is we have 2 beautiful pools. In fact, we renovated them. Oh gosh, it was probably in 2019.
Okay.
So we got a summer out of it. And the last couple summers have been challenging. But for one interesting reason is we can't find lifeguards. And I think Channel 12 recently did something on a whole piece on there's basically a shortage. And we're wondering, where did these kids go? We know that they're not necessarily working at the ice cream stores in the summer. because you see help wanted everywhere.
Sure.
The restaurants as well. But that's one thing that we struggle with a little bit, and that's our key amenity. So in terms of the development of others, we're a little bit restricted just in terms of our flexibility there. But in terms of upgrade programs, I mean, we have properties that are, vintage probably past 60 years.
Wow.
So we're trying to find the balance as well to what's appropriate, where we can also extract some value, and also what residents would like.
Gotcha. But part of the selling, I think, is also the concept that maybe the price isn't as high as
That's
Ridgewood or brand new Hawthorne's going to be, right?
No
You're
question.
competing on price there.
We're a great value,
Great
and
value.
I think that we emphasize service as well.
Right.
And we had a shift in these communities that I think were very undermanaged for a long time.
Sure.
And we tried to emphasize more the resident and the experience, understanding that they probably had struggles, in their professionally and in their work.
Absolutely.
And so we just try to work with everyone. I think that's if there's one thing I'm proud of that we came out of the pandemic, was that we emerged as being very sensitive to that and working with people as they struggle to perhaps pay rent,
Of
and
course.
also just keep up.
I think there's two things that managers can do in any business that are, I find really easy. One is fresh paint. I mean, paint is just the cheapest, easiest way, right? Dougie, you come in here, you paint your studio, you paint your hallway one day, and you're like, hey, it's brand new, it's fresh, right?
Looks
That's
good, right?
That's simple. Good job.
Thanks.
It looks great. And then the other thing is just caring a little more, right? That customer experience. You're not just the guy in apartment 401. You're Josh in 401 who, your kid was sick the last month, and your parents dealing with an issue, and your elbow's killing you, and you've been in and out of the orthopedic. Like, you're human, right? And so always trying to get back to, human and the experience and how you can take care and service someone, and try to be a good listener. I mean, those are things that I think will keep people in your community, whether it's renting from you in an apartment or doing business with you, in the future. I know Dougie does a great job. He's got some great clients in Wyckoff, the TS Ma.
Yeah.
You're always setting him up with different things. You brought him to one of my parties. You do something with Jeff. Like, you care more about him and his business than the last marketing guy he hired.
Absolutely.
Right? For sure. We see that. So I think that's what keeps people coming back, is just to care a little more. So I want to transition into this really exciting new book. This was a project that you definitely kept top secret, right? I didn't know about this. A lot of people probably didn't know about this. I really enjoyed the book. I was super proud of you for this when I read it. Take us back to the moments where you're in Florida, you're at your nephew's soccer game, right? And you're just watching these kids run around in this unbridled joy of kind of a beautiful afternoon, enjoying themselves. You had maybe been through some, different personal times in your life and dealing with some personal things, and had been in the self-help aisle and trying to say, what I want to do here. So take us back to kind of the launch of this book. How did this all come together for you?
That's right. First of all, that's kind of you. Thank you for saying that. And I'm glad you enjoyed it. This was a very stealth project, and you were among the first to see it. I had family members. I sent a note out on a late Friday night, and a few people, and you were on that short list.
The short list, yeah.
And I said, I'd like some feedback. But this book goes back, interestingly enough, I think in many ways, 25 years.
Wow.
And so I'll go back there just for a
Let's do it.
quick second, because it's at the start of probably in my late teens, probably even around 19 or 20, where I first started having some struggles with my mental well-being. And what I didn't know at the time was probably the onset of some sadness and depression.
Yeah.
And it really manifested itself in ways that were somewhat scary to me. They were embarrassing. I didn't share with anyone. And I lived in South Florida for a short time. When I came back in the mid 2000s, I was in New York City, and it probably peaked as I got into my mid to late 30s. All along this time, I'm reading self-help books.
Right.
I'm looking for lifelines. And at the time, we didn't call it personal growth and development. It was more of a self-help.
Sure.
And I enjoyed them. And they were little nuggets I would take, but nothing that really lasted. And fortunately, I've been a really much better and clearer space. And, I think I was able to acknowledge the struggles and then in turn deal with them. So fast forward now, it's 2019. And this is now, if we can think back to this time.
When was 2019? What were you doing?
It feels like a
whole different
100 years
year.
ago.
And
Remember back in the 19s?
Correct. And it was like a lifetime ago.
Yeah.
Happened to be in South Florida, where you just had a beautiful vacation.
Yep.
Went to my nephew's soccer game, and 9 years old, he's playing around. And I ask where his sister is. Now, at the time, she's 4 years old.
Yep.
And as you know, at these games, because
Yep.
you probably
It's
see
crazy.
Julie and
Yeah.
Harper, one is not playing while one is.
Yep.
Well, I see my little niece, and she's off to the side in that little grassy area beside
Yep.
the field, and she's just basking very unselfconsciously in what looked to me peace and joy. It was very clear. There was this lightness of her being. And I went and saw her, and she came and hugged me, and I look at her, and I said, I like your rainbow sneakers.
Yeah.
In fact, Doug can appreciate the sneakers. part of it.
Absolutely, absolutely.
For sure.
And I don't know if Jordan's does
Of
a
course.
unicorn, but they ought to.
We'll
We
find
can
them.
make it happen.
We'll find them. And she sternly corrected me. They're not rainbows, they're unicorns. And I
Wow.
looked down, I said, oh, you know what they are? And they're really cool. And I'm looking at her, and for a moment, I wish that I could feel the way she looked. This kind of lightness,
Incredible.
this sense of peace and joy about her that only a child can have that. And you know, as being
beautiful.
a dad of two beautiful girls. And for me, it's something that I think I filed away.
Yeah.
Now, a few months later, March of 2020,
Right.
there was this sense of anxiety. And like everyone, it was confusion. And also was this really sense of worry. What was
Sure.
happening? What was this? And I remember trying to think back to some of these self-help books that I had read, and nothing came naturally to me. Nothing that I could kind of grab onto or even just think about that would give me a sense of comfort. And that's when kind of was the genesis for maybe I could develop something that doesn't feel like a self-help book, that allows me to have this kind of solid basis foundation for being that could make me feel light. And that
Feel
was
light.
kind of the start of this idea of maybe there's an unself-help way. And that's how the Unicorn in You has been positioned.
Incredible. My gosh. I mean, I've walked through Barnes & Nobles a million times up and down the self-help aisles. And sometimes you pick something up and you read through it. And I mean, you can never read everything. It's just way too much, right? And I think what really most impressed me about your book, Josh, is that there's nothing totally brand new, mind-changing Elon Musk world in here, right? This is back to the basics, as I would categorize it, right? It's the fundamentals. Josh has outlined 5 incredible pillars to kind of live this unicorn life and find this unicorn in you light that he talks about, which is kindness. I have to write them down. Gratitude, integrity, humility, and acceptance, right? And as you read these chapters and you go through and you enjoy the stories, and some of them are some old wise people, there were funny stories. You should feel like, wow, this all makes sense. It's very common sense, simple messages, right? But what happens is we often get caught up in the kind of busy, fancy life and the world of keeping up with the Joneses and the world of what's the hot new thing. And in this go, go, go mode that we often fall back. I mean, I speak for myself, this certainly happens. And we forget about the fundamentals. So I feel like you always have a time to sit back, pause, and kind of restart and focus on the fundamentals. If you're learning a sport or you've been playing a sport for a long time and you get into a rut, you're not shooting really well. You know what? What's the best thing to do? Go meet with your coach and go back to your basics, go back to your fundamentals, right? Work on your exact release of the basketball shot, work on your specific spiral and your throw if you're a football and you're a quarterback. And so for me, that's what this book really helped me accomplish, was being able to kind of look back at some of the basics. So I applaud you on being able to publish something that was kind of quick, efficient to read, right? Nobody has time now for a 25-hour book. This is quick. You can enjoy this on an airplane. You can enjoy this over the weekend. I mean, it's even light. Like I've got a couple copies here. You can throw it in your suitcase. You're not going to get billed on the airplane for extra baggage, Josh, right?
No, not at all. And I think it's a perfect analogy, the sports analogy, because it is about the fundamentals. And, this idea of being back to basics. For me, there was a goal here, and it was the sense of peace and joy. My thesis was that in order to be light, we first had to be solid. And I really think that when I consider all the people in my life that I always, that I admire, that have this sense of lightness about them, it's because they're solid, they're whole, they're intact. And so for me, I thought about what principles can help me get there a little bit. What can I recognize within myself? And in many ways, I think that if anything, if this prompts people to consider the principles in their life that matter, that give them peace and joy, or give them whatever they're looking for. But I really felt that getting back to those basics of kindness, of gratitude, integrity, humility, and acceptance, as I mentioned, this is an unself-help book. And so much of that is driven by the fact that it doesn't feel like a process. The other piece of it is that these principles are all about selflessness.
They are.
And I think that's so important. And ultimately, if we think back to all those ways that we feel peace and joy, it's when we're not thinking about ourselves. And that's
Absolutely.
why these, I think, are so important. If anything, hopefully it prompts some thought and discussion amongst families. And I've had people reach out; they're getting it for their children because it is appropriate. It's meant to be sort of a warm companion, a guide, the type of book that I enjoyed keeping on my nightstand just to reference
and you can
read.
enjoy it a few times. It's something
That's
that you
right.
can pick up a year later and say, look, let me just reset back to basics. It's really laid out in a simple fashion. And, we talk a lot on the show about the more you give, the more you get. And when we had Ramon Hache on, he really talked about, true giving is when the other person it just can't even give you something back. And that's such an interesting way how you talk about in your life, people who have this great light is because they're so solid. And I just, to me, that really hits home. And, I think this book can really help you in your business too. If you're an up and coming entrepreneur, and, there's so many great points here. I mean, obviously integrity, right? No matter what you do, you can't be so desperate that, this is the deal you have to do, that you're going to cut corners and do things the wrong way. You've got to have great integrity. But I was blown away by kindness because I feel like sometimes people think they know everything, right? And they know everybody and they don't need any help. But, you talk a little bit about being pro-social, and when you're kind, you go to networking events in business, come in with a big smile, get to chat with Dougie, ask Dougie great questions, find out, what it is he loves, find out about his family, right? Find out, don't just have a superficial conversation, ask some really good questions, learn things about him, and you're going to make a friend for life and someone who's going to be thinking of you as he goes around. So I think that's something that people can really pick up in business as well. Was there, is there any funny story you want to tell about any of the particular kind of pillars that comes to mind? I know there was there's some stories about wolves and about wise men. I mean, there's some funny stories in here. Was there one that jumped out at you that we can tickle the audience with?
I think the fables, you're right, just in general, are really useful.
They're great
because they're universal. And to your point, this is not intended to be some sort of groundbreaking, earth-shattering piece of information and literature, but I think it does resonate with you no matter where you are in your journey. And to go back to something you had said earlier, because I think it's important, as you talked about integrity, I think that's where we sort of developed our kinship.
Absolutely.
Because that's all we know. You either have it or you don't. And I was at a conference where a pretty prominent author and speaker talked about some things, and he got into integrity. And he started talking about, well, who knows what this is? He broke it down 100 different ways. And I'm thinking, this is the easiest thing to know. You either have it or you don't. And at the end, he finished with, it's not all rainbows and unicorns. And I'm like, perfect. Now I know I'm onto something.
No.
But, as you mentioned kindness, and just to pick out one from the book that people may, connect with, this idea of kindness, what I do is I distill all of these principles, each of the 5, with one key ingredient. And for kindness, I think it has to do with compassion.
Okay.
And make the case with why kindness is good for you, but also to tell you how to find more kindness in ourselves. And one of the ways is using our imagination. And I think it's so important when we use that childlike imagination to let go of judgments of people.
Yes.
And that's really how we cultivate it. We use compassion when we don't assume things about someone, but maybe if we are going to assume, make it more positive.
Right. Assume something positive. I like that.
Absolutely.
Right?
So I think kindness is something that, with all of these, and I recently wrote a piece for New York Weekly about how these principles apply to business, which was your original question. And I think that they all really do. It's possible to be kind and still be successful in business.
Absolutely.
I think gratitude is so important to have in business. Humility for sure. And when we talk about integrity, there's a great quote in there by Henry Kravis, as if you don't have it, you can't buy it. And certainly acceptance, I think, acts as the anchor here, where it's this idea of living in reality, rooting us in what is rather than regretting what isn't. And so I hope that, people will check it out. I think that there's something in here for everyone. And it's the type of thing that I go back and read just to remind myself, like you said, those fundamentals.
And, one of the things you said in the book was that no one has ever become poor by giving.
And Frank.
I just think that's amazing.
Yeah.
I wrote that one down as a remembrance one. Doug, any comments on
Yes.
anything?
So they say some of the most successful people read a book a week.
Right.
Wow.
Right. So this should be one of your 52 right here. We got it for you.
You can definitely get through this in a week. No problem. That's plenty of time to get through.
It might be more or less, but
you can
they
read
say
2 books in a week.
I think that they did a study, and the most successful people are reading like
About 50
Some,
books a year.
yeah, something
that's
like
right.
that. They're reading a book a week. So like, staying sharp. And this is great principles, gratitude, being kind, which are for business, sometimes overlooked.
Yeah, I mean, look, obviously, gratitude, integrity, humility, no brainers in business.
Mhm.
Acceptance, I had to read that one a few times because that's something that I think we all need to continue to work on. And I think the pandemic has really pushed us in that direction.
That's right.
And sometimes I'll say this either on the show or kind of to my own family. If you're focusing too much on the past, you're depressed. If you're focusing too much on the future, you're anxious. Focus on the today because that's the present. It's a gift. That's why they call it the present, right?
That's right.
And for me, I think acceptance, and I always use the phrase, it is what it is. And I don't know if that's a phrase that you've lived by, but it's something that I definitely live by in my kind of core pillars. It is what it is, because the sooner in life you can focus on and identify what you can control, go all in on it. But the things that you can't control, go all off on it, right? Because you can't control it. It's very simple. My dad and I were talking about this. We have lunch almost every day together, which is clearly one of the wonderful benefits of family business. And I forget specifically what we were talking about, but you just can't get so tied up in things that you can't control. And so I find that now that takes years to work through. You are not born with that. That is something that is definitely learned, being able to separate what you can and can't control. But the earlier you can do that, the better. And I think somewhat with acceptance, I think that's such an important skill in business, because you could go down a road for years and years that you just don't have any control on the ending. And that was wasted energy and wasted time.
No question. And I love that you mentioned that, because I think that for all of us with acceptance, we can only control how we feel about something. We often can't control the circumstances, especially when it's happened already. And for me, one of the things that I share in here as something that's been helpful is this idea of feeling it first, which is at least a recognition of your emotions, because otherwise we're rationalizing and we're justifying or we're denying how we actually feel about it. I think what's also helpful for acceptance, whether people may be in relationships that have ended or a business deal that hasn't gone wrong,
Right.
I like to maybe consider finding the positive in order to make peace with it. Maybe there's something that you learned from it. Maybe it's something that you took from it. But I do think that there's something that you can find that's positive, at least from it. And that's how you make peace of it and then ultimately accept it.
It just great stuff. The acceptance, it's super important. Yesterday I was dealing with something where somebody assumed something and it didn't go right, but it was minor. It was so nothing, right? And they apologized, and I said, look, this was a great learning experience, because now you've learned at 5:00 at night you need to check with the project manager to make sure the place is still there, or is it locked up? Like, I don't care that you screwed up. You actually learned a great lesson really quickly. Not to assume that door is going to be open. You have the phone number for the project manager. Text him real quick. I'm coming for an appointment. I know it's kind of late in the day. Are you still there? Or what do I have to do? Simple. That's it. You learned it right away. And the earlier you can do that and move on. And look, things don't always go your way, right? Things are never going to be perfect all the time. We've been fortunate, with good health and great business over the past couple of years. Our family, we're very, very thankful and very grateful. And it's funny, I was on the beach with Juliet and just happened to see a couple walking, an older couple, and they kind of stopped and, smiled and saw Juliet running in and out, having an unbridled moment like you had and seeing the light. And they started chatting and, I didn't know them. I didn't know anything about them. Right. And we started chatting and, where are you from? And I love that. I mean, that's to me the most kind of just the best part of my life, being able to meet new people and chat and kind of listen to their story, right? Because people have such incredible stories, and I can quickly be touched by someone's story. I'm a little sensitive when it comes to that side. So they start telling me, and then they're talking about some real estate that they've owned in the past. And I said, I'm in the real, I own real estate. We manage, we help people buy and sell real estate, et cetera, and invest. And I just started answering some questions for them about their real estate, right? They were just picking my brain. And, I wasn't looking for anything. There was nothing from this. We were just chatting. And then anyways, met at the pool, gave him my card, said, stay in touch, anything I can ever do for you. And he wrote me back the next week and he said, I have to tell you, that was such an incredible moment seeing you and your daughter and meeting you. And you provided this wonderful kind of light to our day. And, my wife owns a McDonald's and she's not sure what to do with this. And can we stay in touch with you as a resource? And I said, of course. I mean, there's nothing, I'm not making any money. This is not, it was just being a nice person, right? It was being kind. It was giving. It was, having humility. It was not assuming that, that I couldn't learn anything from the situation. A lot of your pillars. And, sometimes I'll go to the kids' softball games and I'll see Harper off to the side. And sometimes she's playing with another kid and it's amazing for an hour and a half, right? And I don't know what the hell they're doing, but it's awesome. And I'm going to always think about you and think about the book during those moments. So are you up for a quick little lightning round? We do put our guests in the lightning round on the Get Up with Garret show.
Let's do it.
It's 5 simple questions or so. Keep it, first thing that pops in your head, it doesn't have to be the overly thought process. Dougie will cue you with the music.
I'm ready. Let's do it.
Are you ready? Okay. So other than The Unicorn in You, what's a business book that you would recommend to entrepreneurs?
Just read The Psychology of Money.
Perfect.
And I think that's really interesting, your connection with how you relate to money.
Gotcha. I know as you follow me on Instagram, you see I always have the vanity plates that I take pictures of. If you had to have a new vanity plate on your car or maybe an Instagram handle, anything cute you would put out there?
If it would fit on it, peace and joy would work nicely.
Peace and joy. Love it. I know you love to travel the world. We've talked about that. I don't think did you ever get to Australia?
Yes.
I know. I wanted to go on that trip with you. If we go to outer space, who's taking us? Is it Elon? Is it Jeff Bezos? Or is it Richard Branson?
I think Branson.
Branson? Okay. I don't know if you ever watched Ted Lasso, but first concert, best concert.
First concert was Huey Lewis and the News at the Garden.
Incredible.
Last concert was...
No, first or best?
First and best.
Best.
I'm sorry. Okay, so that was the first. I don't know that was the best.
No.
But best, I'll tell you, the best was Billy Joel, Last Play at Shea.
Nice. Billy Joel at Shea. That was an epic set.
Nice.
Yep. And Josh, last question. What's a goal you want me to remind you of a year from now?
I think to remember that to be light, I first have to be solid.
To be light, you have to be solid. Incredible. Nice, right,
Great
Dougie?
job.
You survived the lightning round.
He survived.
We've only had one person not survive. Everybody survives. So can we reach out to you, Josh, if anybody has questions more about the book or they want to just connect with you about some of the pillars and about being solid, etc. You have an Instagram, Doug, you can put up?
Yeah, Instagram for sure at The Unicorn in You. There is a book website with the same title, theunicorninyou.com. But just reach out to me personally at joshkramer.com. I love connecting with people and hearing your thoughts and feedback and discussing it further.
Absolutely.
I'm going to be having a course coming out actually on this soon.
You're kidding.
That I'm really excited about. I'm developing.
Oh my God.
And just to continue to think more about these principles and even prompt some ideas for folks to think about what matters in their life.
I think it's amazing. And not only am I super proud of you as a friend, but just as an author, it's just such a great accomplishment. And I really, really encourage you to go to Amazon is the best place, right?
Amazon or Barnes & Noble.
Amazon, Barnes & Nobles. I read it on the Kindle, and you can order the book. I definitely recommend it's something that you pick up, even if you're like, let's say, a small sales team or a small staff. Pick up a few copies for your team, your employees. I think it'll go a long way. And feel free to reach out to Josh. And of course, if you have any questions for us, you can always email us. Dougie, what's our email address?
getupwithgarret@gmail.com.
There it is. Look at that, Dougie. getupwithgarret@gmail.com. Any questions, comments, or concerns about the shows we've had or recommendations for future guests or sponsorships, please reach out to us and we'll be happy to see you. And hoping we'll be back in a few weeks and maybe the Warriors will be in the third round by then.
Wowee.
I'm staying up late watching them. So remember, friends, the more you give, the more you get. And appreciate you tuning in today. And we'll see you next few weeks. Take care.